to start from the beginning. I think that's the only way to do this, to do it right. So, okay, tell me again. You are a coach. You coach and you also have retreats for people in the LGBTQ plus community. And it's around helping them with their spirituality, right? And helping them reconnect to it, but also in their authentic way, showing up authentically.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. About a decade ago, I finished my master's. It was a Master of Arts in Spiritual Formation, and in that, I did a 1 year practicum in one-on-one supportive listening and helping people really pay attention to themselves and what's going on in their deep places in their soul and their life. And so I love helping all people who are wanting to go deeper with themselves, but I particularly resonate with the LGBT community because I am one as well. And I think that for many of us who are queer, many of us grew up religious in some way and have some kind of often trauma from that. And so it's a way of connecting with that in a way that is now alive and meaningful because I think many religions, it's like you have to either choose to go the religious path or be authentic in your sexuality. And those aren't allowed to coexist in many religions. And so being able to help people embrace all of who they are in their sexuality and as spiritual beings, because we are all spiritual beings. And so I think it's particularly important to help people in that realm to embrace all of who we are and celebrate that and show that there's room for that because so many have been pushed aside. So that's the heart of what I love doing in the world.
I love that. I think it's very special. And it's so taboo, people say like, don't talk about religion and then don't talk about your sexual orientation. Like nobody needs to know. So these are two topics that are very kept in the dark or just like we don't talk about those things. So bringing these things that we don't talk about to light in a way that's like, no, this is really important. This is kind of at the base of the foundation of who we are, and we need to talk about it because not everybody fits into the box. And for the people that don't fit into the box, where do they fit, or how can they take the pieces of what they knew and kind of because I grew up very I wouldn't say I wouldn't say religious, but also yes. I grew up very Christian, and there was a lot of,
Mm-hmm.
you know, anti this, anti that. And it created a separation. And it really did feel like if I want to show up as myself, then I need to be separate from this because this doesn't accept me the way I am.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you navigate that in this new spirituality or this spiritual way of being?
Well, I've been reflecting on a poem lately from Hafiz, who was, an old mystic from the Middle East, and he has this poem that says, "The small man builds cages for everyone he meets, while the sage, who has to duck their head when the moon is low, goes around dropping keys all night long for the beautiful, rowdy prisoners." And that is the heart of what I love to do, is to embody a sage as much as I can and drop keys for people, help people find little openings out of the cages that people have put us in, and find ways of living more free, of living more authentically who we are, apart from all the things that people have piled on that is like, you have to show up like this, you have to do this, you have to do this. And so like opening up into that freedom of who we are, and really that is also being love, like living in a way that we love ourselves and that we love others, but most importantly that we love ourselves. Like, I think that's one of the most dangerous things, most harmful things that has happened from religion, is that we should like always judge ourselves, always be questioning, like, oh, is that the flesh? Should you be doing that? That's evil. And instead turning and loving ourselves, and deeply, deeply loving ourselves. When we fill our own well, that springs out and it flows into other people. It inspires other people. I know personally, I've lived a lot of my life trying to be a helper and trying to be someone who is like blowing all my love out into the world and into helping people and doing things. But I get depleted when I do that, and they never really get filled because it is an inside job. It is something that we each have to do for ourselves. And so if I can teach those keys of loving ourselves to people, that helps liberate people to live their fullest life, and to show up as they are with their gifts, and that enriches the whole world. And so that's why I do what I do, is that I love seeing people come alive and step into the fullness of all of who they are, because I really believe that each of us has so much to offer and share in the world, but often it's caged. And so when those cages fly open, it's like the whole world is enriched by these gifts of who we truly are.
Wow. I think that, I mean, that quote that you just gave was a really great analogy. Just the cage, because you really do feel like a prisoner and you feel not free. You don't feel free to be or
Mhm.
feel. How do you There's two questions floating around in my head, so I'm trying to pick one. This happens to me often. Um, okay, the first thing I want to ask is how, when you have been with somebody that they're starting with you, can you talk about a transformation? Like maybe somebody that was, what does it look like to really be in the cage? Like, is there depression, anxiety, physical things, addictions? Like, what does it look like being in the cage, and what does it look like once you take the key and open the door for them?
Mhm. Yeah. So I'll tell you about someone that I'll call Kelly.
Okay.
And they came to me when they were first, like the first symptoms were like they had made it in their life. They'd made it to like the C-suite of their organization. They were really rocking it, but they were off on stress leave and at home on the couch contemplating suicide, because it had just become too hard to keep up all the appearances of all the things that they thought everyone wanted them to be and do and look like. And it wasn't authentic to who they were. And it was slowly killing them in some ways. And so they dared to come to one of my retreats. And that retreat was the first time that they said out loud to a group of people that they're gay. And it was really scary and really big. But there was something about being away from the normal life with other people that they didn't know, they probably wouldn't see again. And, the safe space that I held for them to say it. And they did it. And it was scary, but also life changing. And they almost didn't come back the next day to the retreat. They were like, I have a migraine, I can't come. But I checked in and I was like, what's going on here? Like, what can we do to help it be doable for you? And so it was an online retreat at that point because it was during COVID. And so we decided that we would keep their screen off for that day so that they didn't have like the extra stimulus for their eyes. And I thought that was a cool kind of compromise so that they could still come, knowing that underneath all of that there was also some fears around like they had just been really exposing themselves and sharing these deep things with us that is scary. And sometimes there's that shame spiral that comes up when we do deep things like that. And so then fast forward about 4 years now, and are they've they found a new job in an organization that fully affirms all of who they are, their queerness. They've transitioned. They've had top surgery. They've moved across the country to live in the place that they really want to live rather than living where they think, their family members want them to live or different things like that. They have amazing practices of going out into nature, taking care of themselves, feeding themselves healthily. There's still anxiety and depression and things that come, but they have so many supports now of counseling, good community, um, healthy self-love also that has like bubbled up. And it's been really beautiful to see them come alive in this new way that is outside of that cage of this is what you should do, this is how you should look, this is, you don't dare do the things that you really feel drawn to. And yeah, I could go on and on about all the beautiful things, but that's a snapshot of someone that's come. And there's been, others like that, similar themes, but different ways of manifesting living outside the cage now. And it's so fun.
That sounds amazing that you were able to do that for Kelly. And
Mm-hmm.
it's amazing because, and this was the other question, it's like it's amazing how a lot of religion really says that it's rooted in love, and there is a story of love in there, in intertwined with all the rules and things like that. But it's interesting to see the effects that it can have on people, or just even like religion and society, just following the way things should be, or the way we think people think things should be. That is the path to happiness, that is the path to righteousness, that is the path to all of these amazing things. And yet there's so many people suffering because they like it's not working for them, that a lot of people, and I think beyond just this community, but everybody, I've seen it in everybody, these cages. Um, so it's really beautiful
Mm-hmm.
that you were able to do that for her. And wow, that her life just completely, it's amazing how we allow ourselves to be in these spaces that we are totally not, like the hairstyle, the clothing, the job, the city, the car, the partner, the whatever, all of these things. And then when we find our true authentic self, literally all of it changes. It's like, okay, now you can be yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, really? Get rid of this, take this out, I'm gonna change this. And like you're
Mm-hmm.
just, it's like, wow, who is this person? Where have you been?
Yeah. But it's, there's often not support in that because the people who know you get scared if you make big changes like that. And the people that are invested and that if their lives will be changed by you having those changes, it gets scary for them. And so it's hard to know where to go to get support for that. And thankfully there's counselors, and I'm grateful that most people I work with also have a counselor. But I think that the work I do is a little bit more future focused and like, who are you becoming? What are you wanting to create in your life? And so it's fun, creative work, and um, no two stories are the same, and every story is the same. So it's kind of the root of it all is this deepening of love for ourselves and the ways that helps us live in freedom.
That's wonderful. So tell me more about these online retreats, because you're the first person I speak to that has done online retreats.
I was doing in person. Um, and then, yeah, COVID hit, and it was kind of like, what am I going to do? Because I love retreats. It's kind of one of my favorite things that I do in my work. And I wanted to make sure that we are still doing it. And it felt really important because COVID was such a polarizing time, and many people felt really isolated, and it was impossible to travel. And so yeah, we pivoted to an online retreat. We'd still do it over usually like 2 days, and or maybe like three, kind of, an evening, a full day, and then most of the next day. And one of the things that I added in that I really loved was I would create a box that I would send to each participant beforehand.
Mm.
And so in it, I would put like a mug that I had created because I'm also a potter. That's
Oh,
why I called my business
wow.
Centered,
I love
because
that.
you have to be centered to build anything on the potter's wheel, and then also centered within ourselves. Um, and so I'd put a mug in for each person, and so like a journal and some markers, and maybe some candy, chocolate, some other resources that I would use for some of the exercises. And so each person got that ahead of time so that they felt like there was something tangible for it, and really helped, anchor it into something real that you could touch, and then also give these, resources that they needed for some of the exercises that we would do together. And then it was neat because each person, I would kind of ponder which mug to send to what person because they're all different. And so at one point we would take a picture with
Wow.
all of us holding our mugs, and they're all different, but we're all over the world, but each having one.
And you made them all?
And I made them all, yeah.
Wow.
And that's what I love too, is that it made my work even more accessible around the world, because I had someone in England as well as people in Canada or different places, and so rather than having to fly across the world for a retreat, they could just join in with this. One of the things that I recommended for people was to make sure that they carved out space, because it can be easy to just keep going in your normal life and, oh, I'll show up for some of it or whatever. But it's like, no, make this a real thing. Maybe book yourself into a hotel if you can, or your camper or a tent, or, like tell your family you're out, you're not here for this weekend, and be gone so that you can really enter into your own process. And yeah, so then we would still do exercises. I think that you can still go as deep, if not deeper, in some ways with people online, because sometimes there can be fears with being in a new space. Like if you're, we would meet at a hotel in the good old days, and people would be in this like big convention room with all these strangers, and it's kind of like, but if you're in your home in a nice little room where you're cozy and that space, sometimes it helps people jump in deeper right away. Um, and I feel like I can lead in a way that helps each person have space to speak and share, even if they're quieter. Um, and then yeah, go around and do the different exercises. Go off and have alone time to go through some reflection time and some of the exercises that were solo, and then come back, share things. Sometimes we'd leave the Zoom room on for meal times so
Mhm.
that people could eat and kind of be visiting with each other as they would at a retreat, because that can be some of the special time too of a time when people connect.
Yeah.
Um,
Breaking bread.
I've had people that, yeah, I've had people that have stayed in touch with each other after retreats, because they met at it and had similar experiences and wanted to keep encouraging each other as they went. So, yeah, those are some of the ideas that I've had for online retreats.
It's really cool. I mean, as I'm here in an Airbnb right now, so as you were saying it, I had always envisioned an online retreat. You're at home, you know, because you're at home. But what you said is
Mm-hmm.
really simple, but also really cool. I mean, if you could just get yourself, it could be in the same city or it could be in the town across from you. Just get out of your daily grind, get out of your comfort zone, and be in a place where
Mm-hmm.
you can explore, um, and not that you need to be somebody else, but a place where you feel free to just not have to be who you are every day. That's not coming out right, but I hope you know what I mean.
Yeah. Another thing too is not being around anyone else's energy, be
Mhm.
it positive, negative, or like whatever it is, just like having a clean space where it's just your energy. It's the people that are with you on the Zoom call, but in the times where you close the computer, all of a sudden you're really alone with your energy and can touch into who you are in a way that it's harder when you're just busy back into your normal life, back into your family all around you.
Yeah.
So,
And so what do you, now that you're back doing retreats in person, what do you think are some of the benefits of doing it in person? Other than, touch.
yeah. Hmm. Yeah, I think there is something about being in residence with people that is really special. So, going away to somewhere special together where you're not used to being with each other, you get to see people in a different way. You get to see yourself in a different way, which you can do on Zoom as well. But I do think some of that in between stuff that happens, like going for a walk in nature with someone or having a meal. One of them, we showed a movie afterwards, and that was, a neat way to go deep with other people and chat about that after the movie was shown. And another one we did was we shared sex toys and helped people who had never really explored that side of their sexuality touch sex toys and look at them and pass them around and see how they work, and not necessarily on their bodies, but having a way to engage in different ways is so powerful. And you're right, like touch of any kind is profound, and meals too, like being able to provide yummy meals for people that they didn't have to cook, they didn't even have to order, they're just provided for. Having a bath space at the retreat center can be really special for people to go and nourish themselves in that kind of a tactile environment that's been prepared for them. Um, yeah, those are some of my things.
Yeah, I agree with that. But I like the idea of the online retreat, and like you said, maybe it's just like the first step for people that either are not ready to travel and be with a group because they
Hmm.
get social anxiety, or just because they can't travel for whatever other reason. So it's really cool to
Hmm.
have that option.
Yeah, yeah, it opens up accessibility for folks for sure that have different reasons they can't travel.
So what are the biggest challenges, or what is the biggest challenge as a retreat leader? Is it marketing? Is it logistics? Is it?
It's all the things, yeah. Um, those are probably the two biggest ones that I don't love myself. Like, as a retreat leader, I'm more about the in person experience with the people, the emotional, the spiritual, the leading, those things. And so I'm not as good of a logistical person. Thankfully, my partner is very good at that and has helped with, the food, figuring that out, figuring out location, sleeping arrangements, all those kinds of things. Um, I the other part I don't love is like having to figure out the marketing funnel kind of thing to like keep that filled. In some ways I have been lucky that, some people that have come to retreats have come to multiple because they loved it. But yeah, kind of always want to keep it fresh and keep inviting more people. And so figuring out the ways that you can get the word out there and share it with the people that most need to hear it, most would want to come to your particular retreat. That's an important piece.
And how do you build community? Like, how do people find
At the
out about you?
retreats,
Sorry.
yeah, so before, I have a podcast, the Coming Out Chronicles, where I interview people on all kinds of coming out stories. And so that's been a good way to build a broad community of people who are all interested in stepping into their brave selves. Because if we're growing, there's always a new layer that we're shedding of ourselves and exposing more of who we are to the world. And so there's constant coming out. And so that's been a beautiful way to connect. I have the Conscious Queer Collective that I've created where people come together on a monthly basis to share what's going on in their lives, what they're struggling with, what they're stepping into, the brave new things. They get coaching, they get community with each other. And that's been a beautiful way of moving forward. And then I do speaking in different conferences and locations, and that is another good way to connect with people and help them know about my work and um, these retreats and this one-to-one coaching work.
That's amazing. I think that's a great strategy. And I wonder, like, do you ever meet people that have been listening to, how long have you been doing your podcast?
I'm 4 years now.
Oh wow. That's a long time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I have met people that have have been like, I've been listening, and it was so helpful for me in my coming out, or it was so helpful for me in this period of my life. And I'm like, really? I had no idea that you were listening. Like it is hard work in some ways to do a podcast because you kind of just feel like you're putting it out into the void and you have no idea in some ways. Like you can see how many people download it, but you don't know if they actually listen to it all or what it's doing. So it is really nice when you hear feedback from people of the ways that it's made a difference for them in their lives.
Yeah. I've been one of those listeners before, and podcasts have had a huge impact on my life. And I went to a retreat actually because of a podcast. Have you ever had someone that
Hmm.
was a listener turn into a retreat attendee?
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. It's really special. And then full circle to have them speak on the podcast
Oh,
is really neat.
nice. That's really cool. That's a wonderful way to build
Hmm.
community. Because I think podcasts are a great way for people to, I mean, feel like they're sitting down and really getting to know you without being there with
Hmm.
you. Even though you, like you said, you're
Yeah.
speaking to the void. You don't know who's listening, but they feel
Hmm.
like, they're there with you. That's cool.
Hmm. Yeah, I've had people say that they like listening to the podcast because it gives them a sense of what it would be like to be in a session with me, kinds of questions that I ask and the ways that I hold space and stuff. So that's been neat feedback.
That's nice. So what about I've kind of been asking this one because I get a lot of different, so I'm wondering, like, have you ever had a crazy thing happen at one of your retreats? Something that was like funny or weird or something that just shocked you and you were like, whoa, what's happening here?
I've definitely had, people walk out and be like, I'm not coming back,
Oh, wow.
and literally walk and go for a long walk and then come back and be like, okay, I thought about what was coming up for me and I'm back and I now want to face into it. And, it's a bit scary as a retreat leader to be like, have I pushed someone too far? Is it, should we not have been going to this place? But just trusting that everything is working out perfectly and everyone is cared for. As a retreat leader, I take, the responsibility in some ways that I'm like really holding space for them in that time. But I also recognize that like there's so much more happening than me and what I'm bringing up for people or, um, like that's what I love about life is that, there's all these other things that pop in during the weekend of a retreat that happen. And that really is my mantra. Everything is working out perfectly. And, even when shit hits the fan, and I've had to face that myself. Like I had a retreat that I was leading last year for the the Brandy Carlisle family, and I was marketing it to the folks and got a message from Brandy's marketing team saying, "Don't use this word Bramley in your marketing." And I was like, I did my research ahead of time and found that no one owned that. And so was kind of like curious about this and tried to engage with them further, but they didn't want to chat more about it. Um, and then a couple days later, I got a message from the retreat center that said, we've had to close our doors and we're not continuing on with retreats. And I was like, what is
Yeah.
going on here? Like, this is a very interesting two really big things that came up that basically closed down the retreat. It didn't happen. And it's, moments like that that are really hard because I put months of preparation into that beforehand and was in some ways really devastated. And in other ways was like, everything's working out perfectly, Nance. If you say that in one thing, you have to say it in all the
Yeah.
things. And
Yeah.
it's really true. Like in many ways, other things have opened up because that retreat didn't happen. And so it's, retreat leading life is a roller coaster. Entrepreneur life is a roller coaster. There's all kinds of crazy things that can happen, but it's also so many beautiful things happen as well. I've had people come and yeah, like lives changed where they came, like one person came and some of the others at the retreat were talking about kink and wanting to go to a kink show or wanting to do something. And someone else was like, oh, that's too scary for me. I can't look at that. And then, 2 years later, they're all going to a kink show together. and, um, there's just like really beautiful synchronicities that happen when bringing people together to grow.
Yeah. That's really amazing. Just being able to obstacles are opportunities, right? There are no
Mm-hmm.
obstacles, only opportunities.
Yeah.
So, because you mentioned venues, what do you look for in a venue when you're wanting to book somewhere?
If I can, I love to be there in person and really feel the energy of the space. And so I do like to really research and go walk through places if I can, and make sure that I can get a sense of it if it feels like it's going to be a peaceful space. Making sure that there's a room big enough to hold all of us for group sessions. That's quiet, undisturbed by if there's other people on the venue. Making sure that there's beautiful nature around, making sure that the venue itself is well set up and there's not going to be toilets breaking down or different things like that, but
Yeah.
making sure that it will flow nicely, that the rooms are set up well for people, um, that there's enough rooms for people to have space, that there's what's on site for food support, if there's going to be a chef or if we need to bring that. um, Yeah, and then thinking through, there's different ways of doing it. You could do it at a resort, you could do it at a hotel, you could do it at an Airbnb if you found one that had, enough rooms. You could, yeah, there's all kinds of amazing ways if you get creative. And another thing I like to think about is what kind of experience is possible there.
Yeah.
And so, I did one called the Dreams Take Flight Retreat that was at the airport hotel. So it was kind of neat because we would sit in our meeting room and watch planes taking off. And then for the experience, we went a few blocks away and did a flight simulation where people were like skydiving
Oh, that's cool.
and got to do that in our experience and then talk through what came up for people as they did that kind of terrifying experience. And so it's nice to integrate things in. I'm planning one here in the Rocky Mountains in Canada for February. That will be a ski retreat,
We've
and we'll be doing some of that as well. So there's all kinds of ways of integrating the experiential with the venue.
Yeah. I like that too, experience it. So what is this new one going to be like? Slide into your new life.
Well, I'm playing with calling it the Sex Money Power Retreat
Wow.
because why not talk about all the taboo issues, right?
Yeah.
Um, my partner has done a lot of work in erotic sovereignty and helping people really connect into sexuality within themselves, not even necessarily connected to another person, but reawakening that within ourselves. And I have been doing some workshops lately called the money game and helping people approach money in a playful way. But it really is such a mirror for so many other things that happen in our lives and how we show up in life. And so I love using games as a way to learn deep things. And then for the power aspect, we thought about sharing more about our relationship with each other because we've had to overcome a lot of different power dynamic differentials in our relationship. And we've come to really beautiful places of talking those things through and figuring out, how to move forward without one person just kind of bowing down and being like, fine, whatever you want. But being able to express what we both need in a relationship, even when we know that what we want is going to go directly against what the other person wants and needs. And it's so scary to say those things to someone that you love so much. And yet, so powerful when you can do that and have it received and talk through what is the third way that helps both of us get what we need and not just one person cave to what the other needs, because that's not really healthy way forward. And so I think that, yeah, there's some neat ways of addressing power differentials in relationships, in our lives, even looking at gender equality in pay and different things that in our world it feels like there's this power over. But if we can get creative, there's so many other ways through and ways of changing the world, even when we feel like there's some kind of power differential. So,
Yeah.
Sex Money Power Retreat in Canada, February.
Yeah.
Come on
Sounds like a good
up.
time. Yeah, because we were talking about
Hmm.
the principles of dominatrix last time we chatted, and I think like just
Hmm.
to the point of power, because power, I mean, it could just be associated with corruption, like absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Hmm.
But there is a different side. There is a power that is beautiful and is loving and is kind and when used correctly can benefit all involved. Knowing how to use your
Hmm.
power for
Yeah,
good.
yeah. And um, relinquishing power and control
Yes,
and being in that receiving state and that space of not having any control over something and trusting someone enough to take that on is really big and can
that is
show
really
us so
big.
many different things about ourselves too. Yeah.
That is really big because there is a huge focus on empowerment and like power, power, power.
Hmm.
But what you just said, it like made me cringe also a little bit inside because it's hard. It's hard to just to being submissive has been seen as something negative. But it is also
Hmm.
something that can be beautiful because being submissive to something that is harmful is or abusive is one thing, but being submissive to something that is for your benefit or with love or with kindness can also, I mean, it's trust. Just being very vulnerable to trust someone, to give them the power to do whatever, but they'll do things with kindness and love.
And even beyond that, like trusting life, like letting go of putting our trust into one person, whether it's ourselves or someone else, but trusting that we are held and and loved and that everything is working out perfectly, even if it seems like abuse is coming to us, or something's not working out how we want. I think that can be really transformational, is being able to lean back into that trust of life. And I'm doing that in new ways right now. Even this today, I was working on changing my session from, like, I usually only work with people in a 6-month container of support, and I'm opening it up because I realize that I have built a cage, like we were talking about before this Hafiz poem. I've built these cages around my work, and people can't get in, and it's like, huh, this work that I do is a gift. It's been given to me because I've worked hard at it. I've done, years and years of study and practice, but it's also a gift for the world. And so trusting the universe, trusting life enough to lean back in and be like, okay, I'm going to open up my sessions so that they're pay what you decide, and letting the keys fall open, fall all over the ground for all the beautiful, rowdy prisoners. Anyone who wants to get themselves out of their cage, it's available. And so that feels like risky, but also really exciting, of just like, okay, let's see how the universe takes care of me, my kids. We need the money to flow in so we can live in this society that we live in, but also knowing that I'm held.
Yeah. Well, sex, money, power, February.
Here we go, living into it.
Okay. So,
Mhm.
Nancy, do you have any advice for retreat leaders or people who have a venue or just people in the retreat business industry in general? Anything you want to say?
I would say, like, get quiet, get clear on, like, what is it that you're wanting to share in the world? What are you called to, and how can you share that in a way that your people that need to hear that can hear it? And I've been really challenged lately with the power of inactivity, which feels so weird and feels so counterintuitive, but in getting quiet and listening, and that kind of strength conveys through beyond just like being really hyper focused or hyper work hard, work. But I've done that also, and it doesn't always work, and it often leads to some kind of burnout. And so being able to rest, um, and feel held by the universe, and knowing that we can we can show up offering the gifts of what we need to do. Cut out there, eh? You're muted. You're
Thank
on
God,
mute,
because
Crystal.
I was like, I don't hear you. I hope I didn't lose you.
I think it might have cut out there
Still?
for a second, so I don't know. Yeah, I don't remember where I was at or where it might have cut out, but I'm sure we'll make something beautiful from it all.
You were talking about just taking time to be still and be quiet, not hyper
Mhm.
focused and working hard and getting shit done, hustling. I don't know if we said that.
Right.
I may have added those for you, but it was along those lines.
Yeah, I can kind of riff on that a little bit more so you can splice it together if you need. Um, because I have lived that. I have lived that frantic work hard, work, do it, be strategic. And sometimes it leads to something opening up, but often it leads to burnout and some kind of like heavy. And so I'm playing with how to do this work in a way that's light, that's fun, that's playful, that it takes time and space to be quiet and listen in, and then take the actions that I'm given, that pop up as life unfolds, and what I feel drawn to. So I would say, yeah, for retreat leaders and hosts, to get clear on what is it that is your unique offering, and share that, and your people will find you as you get clear and share it in the world.
I like that. That's good advice. That's good advice. So, what about you? Is there a question that you have that maybe somebody in the community might be able to answer?
Yeah, I have a really wild one.
Okay, let's hear
I'm
it.
looking for people who are connected to the owners of Angel City Soccer Club, Angel City Football Club in Los Angeles. It's an all women's owned soccer club, and in the Women's Soccer League. And I would like to connect with them to do soul coaching for their players, because I think, there's so many professional athletes that retire after a certain amount of time, and there's kind of like, okay, now what? It's like you're doing so much training in so many other areas. How can we help resource people so that they can move forward in all areas of their life as retirement comes, as an injury comes, different things like that. Like I have lived that as well as a soccer player in the past. And so I think it would be really fun to connect, particularly with that team, but other teams too, um, to be able to offer that kind of soul coaching, to the point that I just got my Halloween costume this weekend, and it is a Ted Lasso Halloween costume. I'm very excited.
Oh my God, I love that so much. Does he have are you gonna have a mustache? Does he have a mustache? He does,
Yeah,
right?
it comes with a mustache. Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. That's awesome. Okay, well, let's see, let's make it happen, universe. There, the question is out there.
Yeah.
I
Who's
hope it
going to connect us
happens.
up?
That's a great idea. Okay,
Let me
Nancy,
see.
well, it was lovely chatting with you. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for holding this space and sharing these resources with everyone.